Okay, sorry
All right.
about that.
Yeah, I was telling you about my grandmother. Now I'll tell you a little bit about my grandfather. And he was from Castillo de Sambra, a town bigger than Taranda, but not really big, 10,000, 12,000, something in that neighborhood. And his family were merchants. Well, what they would do is they would go out to the villages and they would buy up handicrafts, and then they would sell them in the big city. And my mother always thought that their store was in Naples, but I don't think that was right because Naples was too far away. I think more likely it probably was in Barry because Barry would have been closer. They could have got to Barry and had their store there. But being a merchant was not really something that would interest my grandfather very much because, unlike the rest of his family, he was a very flamboyant man. So he joined the Italian cavalry, and that was probably the happiest time of his life because they gave him a fancy uniform, they gave him a horse, they gave him a sword, and he loved that kind of stuff. Right? So when he was in the Italian cavalry, he went to visit his aunt over in Taranda. He had never been there before, so he really didn't know his aunt or my grandmother. My grandmother then told me that the first time she saw my grandfather, he was riding down the street with his sword drawn, chasing a bunch of people. He got arrested. And the judge said to him, "Why did you do that?" He said, "I was defending the honor of the Italian cavalry." And the judge let him go, but he said, "If you do that again, we're going to put you in jail." So now he goes to visit his aunt, and he sees my grandmother, and that's the most beautiful girl he ever saw in his life. Now, he and my grandmother were literate. Now, not that they had a lot of education, they didn't. My grandmother only went to school for a matter of weeks, but yet she could read and write, and she could do basic mathematics and things like that. How they learned it that quick, I don't know, but she did. And he had maybe 2 years of school, something like that. But anyhow, they could read and write. My great-grandmother was illiterate. She had never been to school at all. So when my grandfather was visiting, he would go to the fireplace, and with his sword he would write in the ashes, "Anna, you're beautiful. Anna, meet me by the barn." And they started a love affair. Well, whenever my grandmother Anna was 21 years old, he came back and they eloped, and he married her. Someone came and told my great-grandmother that this was happening, so she raced off to the county seat to try to stop him, but she was too late. They were married, and it was a happy marriage. And his whole life, he thought he had the most beautiful wife in the world. He believed that even when she was an old lady. Always thought that. Now, you get mad at her sometimes, and when you get mad at her, he'd call her Catarina. My great-grandfather...
What does Catarina mean?
Well, that's from Taming of the Shrew.
Oh.
Catherine. Yeah, Catarina.
Because Amanda's in that play right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he'd call her Catarina. And my grandfather, even though he didn't have much education, he loved opera, and he loved things like that. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.